Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
We are now joined again by Bob Kauffman, who's the owner and CEO of Critical Thinking for Success. Welcome back today, Bob. How are you?
I'm great. How about you?
Doing well. Thanks so much. Just to start, let's introduce yourself to some of our viewers and listeners who may not be aware of who the amazing Bob Kauffman is.
Well, I'm president of Critical Thinking for Success. Background's as a therapist. I do lots of work with individuals, businesses, athletes, even the military, and help them think a lot better.
Right. So you're a consultant, you're a trainer, you're a coach, you're all the above. We had a great discussion last week. You gave us a lot about your background and what brought you into this field, which is amazing. A lot of your hardships, which, we appreciate you sharing. What did you have in store for us today? What would you like to kind of strategize and work with? Do we have an area of focus, Bob?
Yeah, I do a lot of work with businesses, and I especially like helping entrepreneurs move from where they're sort of a one or two person business to where they get to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
And that their genius oftentimes get them started, and they find a nice niche or product or service, but then so that they start working on the business rather than in the business is often challenging for them. And they have a lot of mistaken beliefs that get in their way. So I always say entrepreneurs are both the blessing and curse of their business.
Yeah.
And when they try and grow, it often leads to lots of disorganization, lots of poor communication. They struggle in hiring the right people, and then when they even hire the right people, how to get them on board and help them understand what they need to do. So do a lot of consulting with organizations that way. And sometimes I say it's sort of like herding cats because they're all over the place. And this morning I was talking with an entrepreneur, and he says, well, it's common sense. He had told somebody and they didn't do what he wanted to do. And he said it was such common sense. And I informed him that common sense is not very common. And he had an idea of what they should do. And it was simple to him because he had been through it so much. Yeah. But they didn't have the process, didn't know how to do it. And he hadn't trained them and help them get clear on their expectations. So frequently, I work with organizations to begin to put structure in their business and to be able to think it through. And pretty soon, the business starts moving to the next level once they can do that. And I currently have a number of businesses that's happening, and their growth is significant, but they have their organization ready to handle the growth.
Got it.
I have one company I'm just started working with, and they have lots of business coming in, and they can't handle it. Ooh. And it overwhelms them, and they have numbers of problems. They don't have the people that can do it. And lots of times they don't have the cash available to keep their business in operation. Wow. So they make a lot of assumptions and they have lots of difficulties. So I have to slow them down, really help them understand what are the different aspects of their business, and then how do they help communicate that to competent people to get it done. So with organizations hiring somebody, they don't know how to do it. And so I walk them through, how do you really, people come in, they want to work for you. And how do you know that they can do what they say they can do? because they'll come in and they present like they do, and then they find out later that, they can't,
Yeah.
or they just don't know how. And so helping people have a process for hiring and bringing people on and thinking it through. Well, what do I have to know about this person to know that they can really do what I'm going to be paying them to do? And so I had to help them think through, how could you be sure, or at least have a really good chance that this person's going to succeed?
Yeah.
And there's a number of components that are important in that. And so that's one of the areas. Then once they hire them, how do they help them orient to the company and be clear what their job is, or what training they need to have in order to do the job well?
True. Okay.
And, oftentimes they come in and they'll show them where the bathroom is, and that's about the biggest orientation they get. And then they expect them to perform.
Oh my goodness.
And then they get all upset.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, Joel, you've been connected with lots of different organizations, right? Have you ever noticed that sometimes there's confusion or the planning isn't the greatest?
I hate to say this, but working in television news where it's all about communication, it's a breaking story, you get a call, send them to an address, you go, you cover, report. And then you get a script, you got to write a script, you got to get it edited. There's always miscommunication. You would think for people that are such experts in communication, everything would go smooth. But no, it's just amazing that not everybody could think the same. So there's got to be some type of massive training course, like
Right.
yourself, who could train and consult to help us get where we have to be.
Right, because the different language, I think I mentioned before when we talked some time ago about that we speak two languages. We speak activity language, and we speak procedural language. And activity language is like driving the car.
Okay.
So you drive, right?
Mm-hmm.
I could safely say, Jill, drive to the store and pick up some bread.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, and I wouldn't get you killed or anybody else killed giving you that instruction.
Uh-huh.
But if you didn't know how to drive a car, and I said, well, get in there and drive the car to the store.
That's serious. Yeah.
Yeah, you could get yourself, if you could get it running, you could get yourself killed or somebody else killed.
For sure.
Because I'm assuming you know all the procedures necessary to drive the car safely.
I do. No guarantee I'm going to get there safely, but I will try my best. I do have the skills and the knowledge.
Right.
Okay.
If you had never driven before, and my assumption of that, it's a problem. And so procedural language is being able to break down an activity into all the procedures necessary in order to successfully get that done. And the brain takes those procedures and through practice drives them to the unconscious. So I drive a long way sometimes to get to an office downtown. I won't even remember I've made the trip, but I made it safely because those skills are unconscious.
Yeah.
But then if I were going to start training somebody to drive, I'd have to remember what were all the procedures that allow that to happen.
The signals and the stopping and the looking. Yes.
And so when you have businesses, oftentimes the managers or the owners or the entrepreneurs have things down at an activity level, but they don't know how to break it down for employees so that they can do it successfully. Okay. So if you look at sports, good coaches are able in practice know how to break it down into the finest procedures so that the player knows what to do. when they're playing the game, they'll call a play that requires lots of procedures, and they're hoping that they remember and are able to do all the procedures. Okay, so most people don't get informed that there are these two languages, and if you're running a business, you better know when to use the two. Activity language is used for efficiency, and procedural language is used for training and accuracy. So those are crucial.
Got it.
Okay. Now, I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where you've seen partners or business people very disappointed with each other because they have such different expectations of what's supposed to happen. Have you ever seen that?
For sure. All the time. Why is it so common? You would think people should be smart enough to get on the same page and prepare and do all the necessary steps so they're not wasting the time or wasting the money to have to go back down and refix it to everyone's expectations. I'm with you on that, Bob.
Right. Well, and this goes on in any kind of relationship. You know, you see it in dating and marriage relationships.
Yeah.
They have so different expectations. And business, so different expectations. And they haven't taken the time to be clear on what are we about? What are our expectations out of this? I didn't write this book, but there's a book called Slicing Pie, which is a good book for if somebody's starting a business and different people are playing different roles. What do they get out of it as the business grows? What's their fair compensation? Because a lot of times people come in and they think their contribution is the most and the best and everything. And so they expect the lion's share of the pie, you know? Yeah. And I see so many partners when they don't have much money going, they get in there, they start working, but they haven't talked through what will happen when the money really starts rolling in. By that time, they have clear different expectations, and then they can get into big fights and all kinds of problems. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's because people don't know how to communicate directly, don't know how to set up, you know, what is this value? What do we expect? And so forth. And
you know where this happens a lot of time too? Could I just interject? With home improvements, right? You hire someone to
yes, absolutely,
to redo something, whether it's the windows, the siding, to do a walkway, and all of a sudden it's like, wait, I didn't expect this. I thought, and then
yeah,
a lot of that when it comes to home improvements.
right. Home improvement, lots of different things, because different people have different ideas about how things are. Okay, so these kind of things are crucial to get clear on if you're in business, doing business, or if you're just in relationships and so forth. I mean, a long time ago, I worked for a pharmaceutical company, and it was at a time when they had all men as sales reps, and they were now bringing in minorities and women. And the president of this company called me in and said, "Bob, I'm between a rock and a hard place." He says, mm-hmm. He says, I have women. We have to hire women. The EEOC is saying we have to hire them. If we don't, they're going to fine us. But the women are turning over 3 times as fast as the men, and it cost me $75,000 to get a woman ready to be on the street for the first day. And he says, I can't win either way.
Yeah.
And I was dealing with lots of personal problems for the employees there. And he said, can you handle this business problem? And I said, well, I'll try. But in analysis, there were a number of things. But one of the things was the women men in their lives did not support them as much as the the men in the women's life didn't support them as much as the women in the men's reps supported them. And so, the expectations of all it was a problem. So, and then the managers didn't know how to manage women. They knew how to manage the men, but they didn't know how to manage the women. And we found that there were a few women who were successful, and they all had one thing in common. They had a father who was a good businessman, who loved his daughter and was coaching her. And what was common is you move into new territory, it can upset you because it's unfamiliar. So these women were going into new territory. There wasn't much support for them, and they thought they were making a terrible decision. But the father said, "No, hon, you're going to be upset. You're learning. It's okay." And those were the ones who, when they had the support and the dad was telling them what to do, they were successful. So we created a pathway. This is what you're going through. Your job's harder than the men because they have a lot of support, and you don't. Once we instituted that, turnover was exactly the same.
Wow.
So people moving into new territories are often upset, and they need support, they need training. And so oftentimes these companies are moving into new territory and they're hiring new people. There's going to be people upset, and they need to know that, and they need to make sure that they communicate clearly.
Got it. Great. Wow. Rob Kauffman, we're not taking a break. Critical Thinking for Success is the website. And how else do we get in touch with you before we continue?
Bob at Critical Thinking for Success is my email, and 847-845-0422 is my cell phone, and I'll be happy to take the calls.
Great. And you're actually in, is it Chicago?
Correct. I have north suburbs and Chicago offices, but I can coach people all over the country and even out of the country.
Now, have you noticed a lot of people lost jobs with COVID or the pandemic, or are you coaching them into, working skills to get new jobs?
Yeah, I've known a lot of people have lost jobs, and or their income was greatly diminished. Like I know a good friend who works for the Chicago Symphony, and he got his, they just weren't on, so he got his pay cut by 40%, and really hard. But yeah, lots of people are stressed out by, one, it's new, haven't been so isolated like this. I know lots of therapists, all of them are busy, and they're complaining about they need help because they're all stressed out.
Yeah.
And some people are busier than heck, and other places are hurting. Like, carry out pizza places are just going off the board. I mean, just making money like mad. And and then rehabbing people, in construction are busy, but other places, nothing. So it's a tough time, and it's unfamiliar. So lots of people are depressed and anxious, and the more they then think negatively, that's what starts happening. Our thoughts are very powerful.
Yeah. Got to stay positive. So Critical Thinking for Success. And Bob, what else did you want to bring up in regards to how you can help companies here with your communication services? It's amazing, right? Because I have a master's in communications, but does that really mean anything? Sometimes the people in the communications business have the most trouble communicating,
Right.
and listening, and conversing. I'm sure you figured that out too, dealing with the heads of communication companies.
Well, one of the things I often talk about is the drama triangle. people oftentimes have trouble communicating directly with people that they're concerned about or upset, and they go to somebody else and gossip about them. And then it goes round and round, and and we learn that usually in our families. I remember my grandmother would be upset with my aunt, and she'd tell my mother. Or if she was upset with her mother, she'd tell my aunt or my uncle, and not directly handle any of it, and upset, and things would go on forever and ever. And it happens in business too. And you get the gossip mill, and it helps destroy businesses, all the upset and anger and everything. And training people to communicate directly. And I often recommend to companies to have a principle of direct communication. And out of that are 2 rules. You don't gossip, and you don't listen to gossip. And if somebody comes gossiping to you, like Jill, if you came to talk to me about Frank, I'd say, Jill, you're talking about, obviously have an issue with them. I do not listen to gossip, but if you want to get clarity on what you're going to talk to Frank about, great. But I'm going to let Frank know you have an issue with him that you need to take care of. And it helps get people communicating directly within businesses. And that's a big problem. Throws sand in the gears of business, all the indirect communication.
Beautiful. Yeah. So, I mean, you've been in this job for how many years now, helping companies, people? I mean, for how many years?
I hate to say this, Joe, but
That's right. Thank you.
54 years.
That's amazing. That shows your experience. It shows how wise you are and why you are so qualified to help. So it's a good thing.
Right.
I always say my age. People say, "What? You talk about your age?" I'm 43. I don't care. When I'm 83, I'm 83. And just numbers, right? But
well, I'm 78 and I still play full court basketball.
Amazing. We'd never know. You see? So
yeah, and I have fun every day. And I'm busy as heck because people get results. And so
now, in closing today, we have to wrap up the show. I apologize. Last words of thought here for your viewers and listeners, Bob.
Well, I just like people to know that they're magnificent and be able to start really practicing thinking positively, and because that's going to make a whole big difference in your life. My phone went off. Sorry.
It's okay. We're almost out of time. So that, and then to get in touch with you is Critical Thinking for Success.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. And your email one more time?
Bob at criticalthinkingforsuccess.com and 847-845-0422.
Beautiful. Thank you again for your time. Great
being with you.
You too. Have a great day and an even better weekend.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.